All right, I've got something I got to read you. You haven't heard this yet. I mentioned earlier I was looking through the files, looking for something, and I got a stack of old Finkel reports and WWF-oriented stuff from the late 90s, including, by the way, I finally found a copy of Sable's Playboy contract. I might have to look through there and jot down what they paid her. I wonder, after 25 years, is there a statute of limitations on revealing proprietary information? We may have to check on that.
Yeah, when you got this information, Vince McMahon owned the company. It then went public.
Now all bets are off. But remember Shotgun Saturday Night, the television program that was Vince's idea. We've talked about Vince's ideas. He gets in his head. He, in late 1996, decided we're going to do a live 1-hour program where anything can happen, kind of like they used to compare it to, or say we want to do something like Memphis TV. This show was totally unlike any Memphis television I ever saw, but they wanted it to be live. Anything can happen. Shoot it guerrilla style, low budget, whatever. That's where the story came from of Vince and me and Minnie Vader from Mexico and the camera crew going into the Port Authority to do guerrilla filming at the urinal, blah, blah, blah. Shotgun Saturday Night.
I couldn't believe there was going to be wrestling on Channel 55 on Long Island. That was what blew my mind.
That
WLNY.
The original idea, because Vince is, of course, wrapped up in New York City and everything. And so the original idea for Shotgun Saturday Night was it was going to emanate live at midnight every Saturday from some nightclub or trendy place in New York City with wild wrestling action and excitement and shenanigans. And that was Vince's personal vision, and that's where he started personally producing the vignettes himself. Remember, poor Glenn and Chaz, the Headbangers, Thrasher and Mosh, their first debut on WWF television, they were wearing nuns' habits. They were called the Flying Nuns. And what's that cathedral in New York that we went to and Vince shot them coming down the steps with their nun ears flapping in the breeze? I don't know what the fuck.
Was it St. Patrick's?
That's it.
Wow.
It was some Irish Catholic landmark there. And here come the Flying Nuns, these two tattooed fucking guys from New Jersey in nuns' habits. I wouldn't get out of the limousine for that one. I was sure somebody was going to be arrested. But anyway, that was Shotgun Saturday Night. That was the concept. It lasted, what was it, 8-10 weeks? And then everybody was sick and fucking fed up of going to a noon production meeting in a nightclub in New York City that for a live midnight show. And it was a fucking fiasco, and it was a pain in everybody's ass, and they were having to pull talent off the road and fly them to New York to do this TV and miss a Saturday night house show somewhere where they were going to get a heck of a payoff. Nobody liked this thing except Vince, and when he got tired of it, then it became just another syndicated show, right? And they were just doing syndicated matches. And you might hear the rhythm of the falling rain on my roof now, as it was sunny and 90 a second ago, and now it's pouring rain. But anyway, and then there was the one memorable one where we were in San Antonio, Texas, the night before the Royal Rumble 97.
That was the best one. That was the best episode.
I was out in a goddamn state park with Blackjack Lanza, Bradshaw, and Barry Windham shooting the goddamn new Blackjacks vignettes and didn't get to see Terry Funk go crazy on Shotgun Saturday Night Live, or Shotgun Saturday Night. But anyway, why I'm giving this preamble, and everybody's got their own Shotgun Saturday Night story. One of those nights, I think it was at the, what was that? Was it Mirage nightclub? That's in Vegas. The M nightclub. It starts with an M. I think it's even in these notes. I don't know. But in one of these nightclubs we were in, it was actually where I got chased out by the midgets in my underwear. That's where Jake was 9 hours late for the production meeting. He overslept. Remember I told you that story? We're supposed to be there at noon. And I'm going to ride in Vince's limo because at least it's not going to I can be dropped off at the door, right, instead of finding my own parking. So me and Vince and Bruce, we all go down. We're there at noon. Jake's supposed to be there, not there. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Jake shows up 8:45. His story was while he was waiting for a cab in his hotel in Stamford, he fell asleep for 8 fucking hours from noon to 8 p.m. on Saturday, apparently. So he was off the creative team shortly thereafter. But anyway, what I found here, now you'll recall at the end of 1996 when this Shotgun Saturday Night television show idea first came up, me and Bruce Pritchard were the official creative team underneath Vince McMahon. And I do mean underneath him, under his thumb. But then also Jim Ross was involved as head of talent relations and would come and sit in on some of the creative meetings. He obviously was booking the live events at the house shows, the cards, the matchups. So he would have ideas, suggestions that he would throw in from time to time. He would submit things on paper. He'd come in for the meetings at Vince's every once in a while. And there's also Pat Patterson, who I've got to be honest, I've not seen yet the first thing that Pat Patterson ever wrote down on paper and submitted to Vince McMahon at his house at a writing meeting. I'm sure he jotted shit down for the Royal Rumble. Maybe not. Maybe he just memorized it all. But Pat was the guy that you would talk to and you would go to for advice or inspiration, or in your experience, has this ever come up? What would you do? Put a match together, come up with a finish. You talk to Pat. Pat wasn't a fucking paperwork fanatic, right? That was me and Bruce. But he had the right to pitch in some ideas. And right about this time, that's why I mentioned this, Shane McMahon would come up with an idea or two, although, again, it was usually in a form of an email back in those days. He didn't come to any of the meetings at Vince's house, but he'd be in production meetings and or sometimes meetings at the office, and he would chime in with an idea or two. And the only other person that I can think of besides the folks at Creative Services that had their own style and their own, you know, when they were asked, they would come up with ideas such as Chili McFreeze and etc., Ice Dagger. But the only other person pitching ideas in at this particular time period, right about this time, was everybody's favorite WWF magazine editor, right? We know him as Shitstain. So I've got a document here, Brian, and it's not signed. Nobody took credit for this, and it's been 25 years, but I saved it for a reason. And the reason I think I saved it, as I remember, was because it doesn't sound like anything that I would write, and it doesn't sound like anything Bruce Pritchard would write, and Vince never did stuff like this. And Jim Ross, I've seen his stuff a million times, and as I mentioned, Pat didn't write down a bunch of stuff. So unless this was Shane, and he just went completely off the rails and did something that I've never seen him do before, and typed 3 pages of shit to send over to Vince's, I know who the author of this is. And this was the first inkling that I got that it would not be a good idea for me and him to be in the same room for any extended period of time talking about the wrestling business. This was before Vince actually cracked up after a bad rating on a show that everybody told him was going to suck, and lost his mind and hired the guy to be on the creative team, but he was trying to get his 2 cents in. Remember, it's been said that Vince loves ideas. Just give him ideas. Well, this is the kind of ideas he was getting from this guy. Would you like me to read this?
Yeah.
Shotgun Saturday Night Ideas from you-know-who. The Shotgun Tough Guy match. There is one Shotgun Tough Guy who holds the Shotgun Tough Guy title, and he takes on new challengers every once in a while, but only on Shotgun Saturday Night. On other shows, he can be referred to as the Shotgun Tough Man, but the title can only be challenged for on Shotgun Saturday Night. All the matches are gimmick matches, i.e., barroom stool in each man's corner or tables or whatever. I think a guy like Crush would make a great shotgun tough man. It's a way to get him over without giving him one of the real titles. Instead of title belt, he's got a badge. The shotgun tough guy gets the shotgun tough guy badge, Brian.
A badge? I thought the TV title medal was a unique spin on things, but the tough guy badge.
The badge. Next idea, the wild card extra match. A match between two WWF superstars, but the twist is every 5 minutes, a new extra. And see, that's what marks who weren't actually in the business called the job guys. A new extra is sent into the ring and he can do whatever he wants or attack whoever he wants. So the two superstars try to pin the other guy to win so they would both have an interest in getting rid of the extra so then they could get the other guy pinned. So you've got Steve Austin against The Rock, and suddenly every 5 minutes, in comes Mario Mancini or fucking Dwayne Gill. It would be scintillating television, right?
It's kind of like the Royal Rumble, except I wouldn't pay money to see it.
How about this one? Since we will know when the show is off the air and it's live, why not let the last match be a time limit match with a clock in the arena and the crowd could count down the waning seconds of the match and the show? The match starts with a shotgun blast and ends with one.
Huh.
Also,
that one's bizarre. So you would have almost a time limit draw every single week?
Yes. Yeah. But it'd be a big deal that the fans could count down the time of the show.
So I guess it's not almost. It would be a countdown draw every single week, no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another match stipulation. 2 minutes with Jake the Snake. If you can't beat Jake in 2 minutes, you have to leave the WWF.
What?
Because
Jake only had 2 minutes left in the tank?
At this time was when Jake had just or was about to be appointed to the creative team and his matches were bleh. And somebody probably wanted to be on the creative team instead of Jake. So how about this? This 2 minutes with Jake. If you can't beat Jake the Snake in 2 minutes, you have to leave the WWF. Or if not Jake, maybe a Barry Horowitz type of guy. But he can't get beat up every week.
Wait, now it makes no sense at all.
Or instead of wrestling Jake the Snake, Jake could be like a roving reporter and always has his snake around his neck. It would be pretty cool to see a guy hanging out in a bar or whatever with a snake.
Yeah, this is definitely Russo. There's no doubt.
How about
this?
Now? Here's another stipulation. I'm not making any accusations otherwise, and I've narrowed it down. You call the spot match. When a wrestler is on top, he has to perform whatever maneuver, and maneuver is misspelled, whatever MANUVER the crowd chants for. So I got a headlock on you, and the people are going, shooting star, shoot it. I got to pick you up and slam you and go do a shooting star press on.
We said when a wrestler's on top, does he mean the top rope?
No, he on top, winning, in control of the match. Right? The other guy's he's on offense, the other guy's on defense. He's on top. How about the bouncer match, where you have a match between, now this is a little Shane-ish, a match between New York's toughest bouncers. The winner has to physically throw the other guy out of the building. And then there's quotes. Like, here's the sample announcement, ring announcer, quote, representing the limelight, this guy versus from the China Club, that guy.
Managed by Paul Heyman.
Also, here's very important. Bring back the ring girls, but make them shot girls. They hold the promotional billboards instead of flying them in the production truck.
Well, that's kind of what they did on the original Monday Night Raw. They would have women hold up cards that said, you're watching Raw, or I like it Raw, whatever.
That's where you got the idea. Guest commentators who are not wrestling people. Rock stars, ball players, New York City celebrities, etc. Or, as it turned out, remember who was a color commentator during the dying days of WWF New York?
No, who?
Oh, shit, State himself.
I didn't remember that, no.
He was, WWF New York was it was the syndicated TV, but it was revoiced specifically for New York. And it was on, Channel 11, WPIX, late night Saturdays? And for the last couple months that they did it, he wangled his way to doing commentary because it was New York, bro. And one night, my ex-wife and I were on vacation somewhere. But it was in the perimeter of the New York metropolitan area. WPX was on cable, and the show was on. We turned the TV on, and she said, "Can you understand a word he's fucking saying?" Nobody could. He was talking to his people, and I don't think even they could understand him. But yeah, WWF New York. Anyway, back to this. Ideas for Shotgun Saturday night. Guess Yokozuna's weight.
All right, low-hanging fruit.
Okay, but he couldn't stop there. By the way, this was after Survivor Series 96. Yoko couldn't get licensed in New York, and they were about to send him to Duke and or release him. So, but guess Yokozuna's weight, and the closest fan wins a free sushi dinner.
Oh, my God.
Or Yokozuna against the same weight. Put Yoko on a scale, and on the other side, put job guys on, extras as he calls them, until they equal his weight, and then you have the match.
That one I don't necessarily hate. If there was a way to do it so it wasn't cheesy or anything, that's all right.
And see, that is Vince McMahon's reaction. Whereas all the rest of us were like, can somebody please put a fucking hollow point dum-dum bullet in this motherfucker's cranium? Vince was like, yeah, pal, give me 500 more ideas. And then he'd take one and he'd revamp it, and that's the way you do it. And that's the use he got out of this fucking more.
Was this like a regular thing, the idea Vince would get a sheet with just tons of ideas?
No, this was not. This was, again, there was a small group of people that were either encouraged or allowed to send stuff like this that he would give to us in the writing meetings. Unsolicited. If he asked creative services for names or whatever, you'd get that, but only a few people. And this is the shit from the guy he ended up liking. Flashlight match. Everyone in the bar has flashlights, and that's the only lighting. That's the only lighting for the match. Everybody in the bar, because this guy also, besides the fact he'd never done wrestling, he'd never done television. That's another thing he'd never done. Wrestling, television, and a fucking female human. Things he'd never done. We did on cameras when he was doing the WWF New York voiceovers. Yeah, if you were on syndicated, you'd go down during one of the matches before they started taping Raw, and they would tape the match that was going on syndication and shoot you at the fucking desk to prove you were there, and then you'd voice the rest of it in post in the studio, right? We do the on-camera of my show and then for his show, and then we're walking back before they started Raw. He said, that was cool. I said, what's that? He said, being inside the barricade. What? I've never been inside the barricade while a match was going on. This was a motherfucker that was just appointed to the writing team and is doing color commentary. Next, a segment that's a takeoff on Weekend Update. Have someone like the King report on actual news from that day and week and report it with a WWF twist. Like what he did with Tiny Tim, but it should be all bizarre news stories. All security should wear black hats with shotgun badges, all black shirts, pants, and shoes. Wait, hold on. This is exactly what's written here. All security should wear black hats with shotgun badge, all black shirts, pants, and shoes, period, on the front, so they kind of look like police SWAT team, period. No agents ever run into the ring, just these shotgun security guys.
Is it wrong that I want someone to fund his vision? I want to see a show with all of this.
Somebody did. It was called The Howard Stern Show.
It was called TNA.
Well, that's true. The Who's Hipper match. You do a hidden camera on two different superstars trying to talk their way into an exclusive nightclub. Who's hipper? Because they're not celebrities that would be instantly ushered into the VIP room. They're these WWF asshole fucking phony wrestlers that need to try to bullshit their way into a goddamn nightclub. How about this one? A match between the wives of Stone Cold and Pillman with Stone Cold and Pillman in their corners.
Sign me up. I want to watch that. That would have been Jeannie Clark at the time.
Yeah, it would have. And Melody Pillman. And this was something that he handed to Vince McMahon on purpose.
Let me stop you right there as you're talking about this. This would have been 96, because I'm just trying to think where Steve Austin would have been at his point in his career where all of a sudden his wife, who was never on WWF television, would have been recommended for an angle or a match.
Well, that didn't matter. He just knew that she existed. And Austin, at King of the Ring 96 was Austin 316, and that's when Jake was making his comeback. Well, 6 months later, because Shotgun debuted January of 97, so these ideas were somewhere around December-ish of 96.
Yeah, so this is after Brett versus Austin at the Survivor Series, so Austin was already the hottest or one of the hottest things in the company, and
yes,
this was the idea of how to use him.
Yes. Here, the next idea, I don't know why Vince McMahon didn't jump all over this, Brian. Remember, this is December 1996, this idea. A beautiful, buxom female referee.
Too close to home.
Apparently, old Shitstain wasn't studying his history along with grammar, spelling, and everything else in school.
If that doesn't work for you, how about a hot paralegal?
Yeah. Shotgun Saturday Night mascot. Shotgun the Bear. Everyone abuses him and throws stuff at him, or maybe a heel mascot. Here's some segment ideas. Brian, would you like to hear? These are recurring segments on a show called Shotgun Saturday Night that would be good, right?
So not matches, not promos, but recurring features.
Well, recurring segments, or as some are matches, some are promos, but it's a recurring thing with a recurring theme. The striptease match. Two superstars. Oh, dude. Two superstars have their wife or girlfriend in their corner. And each time one takes a fall, the other's girlfriend has to take something off.
Oh, come on. How many
it's
guys
on paper in front of me.
How many guys would have gone for that? Well, I guess you would have had to have kayfabe girlfriends.
Actually, well, depending on the person, a number of guys might have gone for it if there was fucking money involved because they had a variety of experienced girlfriends in that particular endeavor. But this is the fucking stupidest shit you've ever heard of. Shotgun Star Search. People come on doing imitations of our wrestlers. King Night. Everyone dressed as a king gets an audience with the King, Jerry Lawler. Fan of the Week. Get a sponsorship. Wackiest fan in the bar gets interviewed by Todd Budweiser. Wait a minute. Hold on.
That's not what it says.
That's exactly what it says, but there's no punctuation and there's no commas. And fan of the week, get a sponsorship. Wackiest fan in bar gets interviewed by Todd, which would be Pettingill. Budweiser brings you this week's fan of the week. He actually misspelled Budweiser. Remember that old thing, I before E except after C?
Yeah, of course.
Hot Sunny Nights. Sunny's talk show with a guest, but eventually always comes back to her putting herself over. The World According to Backlund, Mr. Backlund's view on the latest stories on the news. JR's Southern Comfort, the Heels Only interview segment. And finally, an obstacle course set up through the bar.
I wondered if there would be a big finish, and there it is. Does it have any details about how the obstacle course would work?
No, that's left up to your own devices, ladies and gentlemen.
Who goes
Just an obstacle course.
For the fans or the wrestlers?
It's not really fully delineated there. Like many of his ideas, they were not fully fleshed out ahead of time before they emerged like diarrhea from his pig lips. That's the kind of shit that we had to put up with. That is not only the grammar and the punctuation, but the quality of the ideas and the fucking nonsense and the silliness. And it was like talking to a fucking misbehaving child. But Vince loved ideas because he would take one of those inane. That's the way all of the ideas that I ever saw dipshit have got started. And Vince McMahon would take one of them and translate it into English and put it in its proper order and then say, okay, do this. Which was even more dangerous, because then you let Vince McMahon interpret the fever dreams of a fucking maniac. But there you have it. Shotgun Saturday Night.
Is it harder for someone like you, or in the position you would have been in, to shoot down? I mean, it's one thing to shoot down one bad idea, but when you have like a whole sheet of nothing but bad ideas coming at you, is it harder to put up with when
because
barrage?
I didn't have any patience. Bruce was friendlier with him from the start, and Bruce didn't mind the entertainment wrestling because he'd been there for years at that point to begin with. And Bruce also has more patience than I do, and if he's instructed to coexist with some fucking asswipe because it's business and this is where we work and you're told to do that, he'll do it. Whereas my thought was, why the fuck are we wasting our time with this fucking knucklehead who's a goddamn embarrassment to the business? And I don't want to listen to this shit because the stuff that we're all doing is rotten enough in the WWF without goddamn making it worse with this guy. And I don't want to be around him, and I don't have any patience. And if he comes up with a bad idea, I'll say, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and you're an idiot. And therein was the two ways to handle those things. Mine didn't take as long as Bruce's did.
So you have more of these kind of sheets?
I've got to go through some more stacks of papers. You never know. We may be able to pull up anything here out of my archives. I was a pack rat for things that were just blatantly ridiculous. I thought one day I will show people these things as to why that they almost drove me out of my mind, and I did end up screaming at a lot of people. I've just put them in the files and never thought to bring them out till now, but now I'm finally fulfilling my fucking original intention. Slowly but surely.
All right.
You know, the one thing that I needed, though, Brian, after I would come back from a day at Vince's that would start, I'd leave my house at 7 o'clock. It was 2 hours to drive to his house because it's only 40 miles, but it was Connecticut. And then I'd sit there from 9 o'clock in the morning till at least 6 o'clock at night, sometimes 7:30. It was dark in the fucking wintertime by the time you left that fucking place. And then I would go home and I would call the food delivery service that I mentioned the other day that we found near where my house was, and I would have 3 full-size dinners delivered plus one for my wife, and then I'd eat the other 3. And then I'd try to get a good night's sleep to forget that I was being closed up inside a room on a regular basis with a complete imbecile. And the only way that I was able to not go to the office the next day, find that aforementioned imbecile and gouge his eyeballs out of his head was by getting a good night's sleep. And unfortunately, it wasn't as easy back then, Brian, as it is today, because back then in 1997 era Connecticut, there was no Helix sleep mattress to lay on. They didn't exist back then. Back in the dark days, back in the before times, they didn't have Helix sleep mattresses. You had to lay down on whatever was available that fit your fancy at the moment. Whether it be a hefty bag filled with bubble wrap, whether it be a sheet wrapped around, I don't know, body parts from the local morgue.
What? No one slept on that.
Well, nobody could sleep on those things. They're lumpy and hard. You can't get a wink of a night's sleep on a sheet wrapped around body parts built from the local morgue. You can't do it. And a lot of people back in those days, they chose instead to just go without sleep because sleep was such an uncomfortable thing to try to get. Well, you're not old enough to remember back in the long, long ago, back before the Helix sleep mattresses, but a lot of people instead just chose to stand up overnight. They'd take their clothes off, Brian, but they'd walk into their bedroom and instead of laying down on that, I don't know, that sack of stuff that had been found floating in the East River that they put on their bed frame because they didn't have a Helix sleep mattress, they'd just choose to lean up in the corner and sleep standing up against the wall.
Where did you hear about this?
Well, it's what we all used to do back then in the before times, before Helix sleep mattresses, because there was nothing else to lay on. You had to make your own shit or just make do. But now, folks, that's a thing of the past because Helix Sleep is here for your sleep at Helix. That's HELIX.com, or I'm sorry, HelixSleep.com. You know how to spell sleep, don't you? You ought to. There's only 5 letters in it. HelixSleep.com, they've got the greatest selection of mattresses you have ever seen before. You'll find no body parts from morgues in these mattresses. You'll find no hypodermic needles and, envelopes of cocaine from the East River. You'll find no moon rocks and various pieces of uranium like, out west, out in the desert. Yeah. A lot of the prospectors, they would go out and they would sleep on rocks, and sometimes they'd sleep on uranium and they would get radioactive. And then they would glow green overnight. None of the Helix sleep mattresses are radioactive. They check every single one of them before they leave the plant. The ones that have any level of radioactivity whatsoever, they're instantly burned.
There are no mattresses. I don't even know why you created an issue and decided to go further down the road with this issue. There are no radiation issues that any of the listeners or any of the customers of Helix Sleep have to worry about. Fine mattresses, comfortable mattresses. You've talked about the things they don't put in their mattresses. Let's talk about what they do put in. Comfort.
Well, let's talk about or put on. You put anybody on one of these mattresses, they'll be comfortable. But no, there's no problem with radioactivity. Like I said, they check everything before it leaves the plant. But the Helix sleep mattresses, they have customized mattresses. If you like to sleep on a firm mattress or a soft mattress or something in the middle, they've got cool down technology. If you sleep hot and you wake up in like a pool of sweat that's more like a puddle of piss around your neck and around your crotch, and you're just laying in this warm, tepid water that tastes slightly salty, and you're wondering, did I alleviate myself in the bed while I was sleeping? Because I was having a dream about taking a big piss? What could have, or is this just sweat? Just disgusting sweat that I'm laying in that's salty and filled with stench? That's because you've got a mattress that you sweat on. When you get one of these cool down mattresses, well, you'll be as dry as a nun's twat. So they've got mattresses for whatever your individual sleep preferences are over at HelixSleep.com. And if you use the code /JCE, that's HelixSleep.com/JCE, you'll get up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows. For our listeners only, that's HelixSleep.com/JCE. They've got over 12,000 5-star reviews, over 1 billion hours slept on Helix mattresses, and not one single solitary second of those billion hours was spent sleeping in a pile of sweat or in a puddle of piss. And none of those mattresses were radioactive. You can take that to the bank. So, right now, go to HelixSleep.com/JCE. Take advantage of the 10-year warranty. What's the half-life on uranium? Because actually, it would take longer than 10 years to find out if any of these mattresses.
None of the mattresses have radiation. Stop it. These are safe mattresses.
But it takes thousands of years to fully eradicate itself. So after 10 years, you're not going to know about it. But they check before they leave the plant, as I've mentioned. So they got a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. And after 100 nights, you'll
be safe after 100 nights. After 100 nights, you'll continue sleeping good.
Yes, just measure yourself. If you've grown more than 6 or 8 inches in that 100 nights, chances are they didn't do the uranium check on that particular mattress. That's what started the amazing Colossal Man's issues. As you'll recall, he slept on that radioactive mattress when he was out on the boat, and then he began growing at a rate of about a foot a day. And then by 100 nights, you'll be 100 feet tall, 106 feet tall. So after the first 100 nights, if you're 106 feet tall, call them, get them to come pick that son of a bitch back up, give you a new one. They got a 10-year warranty and the risk-free 100-night tryout. They'll pick it up for you. Especially if you're 106 feet tall, they're going to do anything you ask. And they've got financing options and flexible payment plans. If you're 106 feet tall, you're going to need to be flexible just to bend over and pay these people their money. So it all works together. It all fits in. A great night's sleep is never far away at helixsleep.com/JCE. For the long and the short of it, if you're 106 feet tall or you just don't want to sleep in a puddle of piss, get a Helix.